Alright, so let's just get this out of the way up front. Monster Hunter Wilds is easier than Rise, which is easier than World, which was easier than Generations Ultimate, which was easier than 4 Ultimate. I mean, that's not controversial, that's just observable reality. But what's really fascinating isn't that games evolve, it's how we talk about that evolution. So here's the thing about watching thousands of grown adults lose their mind over quote-unquote difficulty discourse before we have had essentially the full version of a game. It feels like somebody complaining about the size of your portions when dealing with like an 8-course dinner when they're just starting on the appetizers. So the Monster Hunter and the Monster Hunter Wild subreddit had a lot of people early on going into full panic mode before most players even carded once, and yes, that can be seen as a critique on the difficulty of the game. But the thing is, these arguments feel eerily familiar. Monsters aren't aggressive enough, part breaks come too easily, and Focus Strike is basically an easy win button. And just to really put this in perspective, Wilds has been out exactly for like 2 weeks, and there is a Japanese player who has reached Hunter rank 999. Like, that dude isn't just an outlier, it is statistical space debris that somehow achieved escape velocity from the normal distribution curve. For anyone who is basing their assessment of the game's difficulty on players like these, you know, basically the Michael Phelps of monster hunting, what you're essentially saying is that your local community pool doesn't need a shallow end because people like this exist. Oh, hello there. YouTube game Ka is a wheel here, back at it again with another I told you so. Back in like 2018, the very first video essay that I ever made was actually about Monster Hunter. It actually aged perfectly, if I may say. The first like minute and a half of it is completely relevant to the discourse that we are having today. In regards to all of the people saying, oh, Monster Hunter Wilds is too easy. We were already there with Worlds, and you know what? We were already there with Generations Ultimate, and I've been here for a while. I've been here since the days of Nintendo Wii, so I'm just gonna say this. I was right then, I'm always gonna be right now. Go watch that video and then come back here and like seriously, if you need proof about why you should like and subscribe, it's because of the fact that I don't miss. I called that stuff way back when. Alright, so you know what, let me just kind of take a little bit of a victory lap here. Let me kind of go over all of this stuff again, and let me tell you guys why the discourse surrounding Monster Hunter getting easier is stupid. And people who take that discourse seriously, like, I'm sorry. Why does it matter? So if you weren't offended by that intro, go ahead and keep watching. Like I said, if you end up liking that, give me the 3-episode rule, watch 3 episodes, 3 of my videos, and if you like all of those, then go ahead and hit subscribe. That means that I'm probably worth your time. And then we'll also see how many other predictions that I get right from this point going forward. Also, obviously, I am on the road to 3,000 subscribers, which is a lot for me. So anything that you can do to help me reach that goal, whether it be liking or subscribing or sharing this video or just leaving a comment, like seriously, even just leaving a comment, that is gonna help me so much in terms of just getting my videos out there in the algorithm. So just hit the keyboard with your face, hit the keyboard with your hands, and leave a comment.
Step on it, Daddy!
So this pattern isn't really unique to Monster Hunter, it is also completely prevalent in From Software's games. They kind of helped establish this blueprint for modern difficulty discourse from years ago. So remember Elden Ring's schizophrenic reception? It was simultaneously so difficult that capital G gamers had meltdowns at the mere suggestion of an easy mode. Yet it was so easy that people claimed that FromSoft should change their name to GoneSoft, and that is my original joke. I'm sure someone else has said it before, but oh well. The cognitive dissonance in this moment was simply breathtaking, and we're at the point now where this cycle just becomes insanely predictable. New game gets announced, veterans chant "can't wait to suffer," game releases, and then forums are filled with "oh, this boss is bullshit." 2 weeks pass and suddenly it's "I've beaten everything solo. This game is just way too easy." DLC gets announced, and then the cycle resets with finally real difficulty. What I really find fascinating about this phenomenon isn't just its predictability, but how this conversation around difficulty morphed from celebrating unique challenges into this weird, bizarre gatekeeping mechanism. The get good mentality transformed from helpful, tough love into a toxic barrier to entry, with difficulty not becoming just a feature but a twisted badge of honor. Meanwhile, the developers themselves, the people who made the damn game, they have steadily been refining their approach to difficulty and adding more player options and smoother learning curves with each release. While the core community screams about casuals, the developers are quietly making their games more approachable without having to sacrifice their unique identities. So really quick, let's just talk about the mechanical differences between Dark Souls and Monster Hunter, just so you guys can kind of pick up what I'm putting down. So Monster Hunter has always taken a different approach to difficulty than Dark Souls. Since its PS2 origins, the series has embraced a long-term engagement model where the initial experience deliberately onboards players into increasingly complex systems. It's not perfect, mind you, but I mean that is how they are trying to do things. Each iteration wasn't simplifying the experience but refining it with a whetstone, making the barrier to entry about mastering the hunt rather than fighting the controller. Like the original game, you had to use the thumbsticks to direct which way you were swinging. So don't come at me about making the controls easier for more casuals when, let's be honest, the original control scheme kinda sucked. Oh, off topic, also they got rid of the underwater combat, which was also terrible. You had to literally buy a thumb pad for your DS to make underwater combat feasible. So fast forward to 2018 when World came out, and it overhauled nearly every system to create an entry point for millions of new hunters. Rise ended up pushing the accessibility even further with wire bugs and palamutes. Also, let me be able to drift my secrets, please. I want to be able to drift my birds because I can drift my palamutes. And now Wilds ends up continuing that evolution with more fluid combat and additional mobility options and even further system refinements. But in my opinion, here is what the difficulty Discourse consistently misses. None of these changes eliminated the challenge ceiling. They raised the floor, but they didn't lower the ceiling. These refinements aren't making the game more simple, they're making it more accessible while preserving the depth that makes Monster Hunter actually special. But the distinction between accessibility and difficulty is honestly very crucial. When veterans complain about a game being too easy, they're often really complaining about it being too accessible, as if making something more approachable somehow diminishes their own accomplishments. It's the gaming equivalent of being upset that kids today don't have to walk uphill both ways in the snow in order to access a 56K dial-up connection. So as I stated at the beginning, every Monster Hunter release follows the same pattern. Base game releases with easier monsters, and veterans complain it's too easy while newcomers are just carting repeatedly. Then free updates add progressively more challenging monsters, and then next, the big expansion hits with Master Rank or G Rank, whatever you want to call it, and it ends up just humbling everyone. Finally, we have the post-expansion updates that introduce monsters that make players question their life choices altogether. Like, I remember playing World at launch and feeling confident after downing Anjanath, only to have Nergigante humble me repeatedly. By the time Fatalis arrived in the final update, I was questioning whether I even understood the concept of video games anymore. Was I doing this for fun or because I enjoyed the misery? And yet, in my opinion, with each new release, the community develops collective amnesia about this pattern. We remember the brutal in-game challenges of the previous title while forgetting how accessible its early hours were. We somehow conveniently erase the months of updates that gradually increased the challenge, pretending that day one experience was as demanding as the final form. This selective memory creates a perpetual games were harder back in my day narrative that simply doesn't align with reality. It's not just misremembering, it's actively rewriting history to support a narrative that simply isn't supported by facts. What's especially fascinating about Monster Hunter's evolution is the shift from difficulty through friction to difficulty through depth. As PC Gamer's analysis points out, the pendulum is swung back since the early days of Molten T-Rex. Hunters have so many new tools that some monsters can fall behind. And with each iteration, Capcom gives players more powerful tools, from hunter arts to mantles to wire bugs to focus strikes. But simultaneously, the monsters themselves evolve in complexity, speed, and lethality. It's not that the games are getting easier, it's that the entire combat paradigm is shifting. Early Monster Hunter presented difficulty through limitations. You have restrictive stamina, punishing animations, limited mobility. Modern Monster Hunter presents challenges through complexity. Monsters with more varied attack patterns, environmental interactions, and state changes that require deeper understanding of mechanics. Were the old limitations hardcore? Sure. Were they good game design? Like I said, that's debatable. Did removing them make the core Monster Hunter experience less challenging in a meaningful way? Absolutely not. Going back to PC Gamer, I'm the type of player who actively wants to see the tracking and preparation side of Monster Hunter minimized because all I want to do is fight monsters, and fighting monsters feels better than ever. And in my opinion, this is a crucial distinction that veterans often miss. Monster Hunter isn't easier because the monsters have been weakened, but because the barriers to engaging with those monsters have been reduced. That is the key insight in my eyes. Difficulty for difficulty's sake isn't the goal, satisfaction is. And sometimes the most satisfying experience come from games that respect your time and intelligence by removing artificial barriers to enjoyment. So to really start bringing my point home, let's talk about the Steam achievement data for Monster Hunter World. And what it reveals is honestly very conducive to my point. It shows that about only 37% of players ever defeated Xeno'jiiva, the final story boss of the base game. Nearly 2/3 of players who purchased the game never completed the main story, let alone tackled the post-game challenges or expansion content. And I mean, these numbers reveal a very crucial truth. The players dominating online Discourse represent a tiny fraction of the actual player base. When these vocal minorities complain about difficulty, they're essentially saying, this game, which I've played more intensively than 99% of the player base, doesn't continue to challenge me specifically. The irony is that these same players are often the ones who lament falling player populations or wish their friends would get into their favorite games. You can't simultaneously want a game to be more popular while insisting it cater exclusively to the most hardcore segment of its audience. Capcom clearly understands this tension. Their solution isn't to abandon challenging content, but to create a more graduated difficulty curve that keeps both newcomers and veterans engaged over the game's multi-year lifespan. Early accessibility is what allows for later extreme challenge. You need a broad player base to justify developing those in-game monsters that only a fraction will ever defeat. To me, what makes Monster Hunter special isn't just its difficulty. It's that I would consider it more like a puzzle box where the directions are written in disappearing ink. The true challenge isn't just beating monsters, it's deciphering 14 distinct weapon types, dozens of armor skills, a crafting system with hundreds of components, monster-specific behaviors and weaknesses, and environmental interactions, all including a series of complex status effects. Each of these systems is deep enough to warrant its own tutorial, yet the game largely expects you to figure them out through experimentation. This is where my Dark Souls comparison actually holds a little bit of water. Both games embrace combat systems with significant depth hidden beneath obtuse explanations. They celebrate the joy of discovery through experimentation rather than explicit tutorialization. The difference? Dark Souls front-loads its difficulty while Monster Hunter backloads it. Dark Souls puts the wall at the entrance, and Monster Hunter puts it several dozen hours in when you think you've got it all figured out. To me, the true complexity of Monster Hunter emerges from system mastery, not just reflex challenges. It's why veterans find the early game easy. They've already decoded the puzzle box. For newcomers, that decoding process is the game's primary challenge, and it's anything but easy. So here is why I probably care a little bit too much about all this discourse. Every time I start seeing these gatekeeping arguments erupt, I start thinking about the gaming culture that we are cultivating for the next generation. As a man who is raising 4 future gamers, the kids who enter these online spaces in the years to come aren't just abstract concepts to me, they're actual human beings that I am raising. The thought of teaching someone the individual mechanics of each weapon is daunting enough. Try explaining the differences between Charge Blade's energy management and Switch Axe's transformation states, while also covering Bow's critical distance modifiers without watching somebody's eyes just glaze over. The systems that Wilds has established creates a rhythm and flow that makes it easier to find that perfect sweet spot of challenge and reward, something that benefits veterans and newcomers alike. To me, this gaming toxicity isn't just annoying, it creates environments that actively repel new players and perpetuate elitist mindsets. Every time we insist a game is too easy because it doesn't immediately challenge veterans with thousands of hours of experience, we're essentially saying this space isn't for newcomers, it's just for us, the elite. Maybe it's a dad in me, but I want better than that. I want my kids to enter gaming spaces where challenge is celebrated but not weaponized, where mastery is admired but not required for entry. I want them to discover Monster Hunter or Dark Souls or whatever comes next and be met with encouraging veterans rather than dismissive gatekeepers. Also, let me note, there is a reason why my 9-year-old son has beaten Elden Ring and the DLC, because I am that good of a father. But also, here's the uncomfortable truth, that get good mentality doesn't reflect mastery, it reflects insecurity. True masters lift others up. They remember their own struggles and help newcomers navigate them. They find joy in sharing knowledge rather than hoarding it. So to conclude, the question isn't whether Monster Hunter Wilds is too easy. It's not. The real question is, what kind of hunting grounds do we want to create for everyone who comes after us? Do we really want our spaces defined by elitism and gatekeeping, or do we want communities that celebrate both challenge and accessibility?
Woo! I see why they call it frenzy.
Sorry, in my 2 decades playing this game, I've never seen shit like that. As somebody that is raising 4 future hunters, I know which version I am fighting for. The walls will come, they always do, but in the meantime, maybe we can focus less on complaining about their absence and more on building the kind of gaming community that makes facing those walls together something to look forward to. Because at the end of the day, the real monsters we should be hunting isn't the game at all. It's the toxic mindset that gaming is a zero-sum competition where someone else's enjoyment somehow diminishes our own. And unlike Fatalis, that's a beast we can actually slay if we choose to. Corny, I know, but I don't care. So to everyone already rushing to declare Wilds too easy before even reaching the end game, take a breath, go touch grass. Remember your first hunt, and remember how bewildering and overwhelming it all seemed. And maybe, just maybe, probably not, consider that the true mark of mastery isn't how quickly you can clear content, but how effectively you can welcome others into that experience that brought you so much joy. The real in-game challenge isn't beating the toughest monster, it's becoming the kind of player who makes the community better for everyone else who follows. Because that is how you keep a gaming community alive after almost 2 decades. Alright, so thank you again for your time. Thank you again for making it through this video. Obviously the video itself wasn't really as scathing as that intro was, but now, you know, clickbait. It works. What can I say? Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any like weird, obscure topic that you want me to talk about. Underwater basket weaving, sure. You know what? I'll make a video about that. If this video gets 2,000 likes, I'll make a video about underwater basket weaving. So there. I have a couple other short videos that I want to do, so then that way I can front load all those and then start working on some bigger stuff. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So once again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm watching you, Bob. I'm watching you hit that subscribe button. All right, and as I said at the beginning of the video, just mash the keyboard with your face, mash the keyboard with your hands, mash it with your booty, mash it with whatever. Just, you know, help me get into the algorithm any way that you can. So thank you again. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining my cool club of almost 3,000 people. And you know what? I'll see you in the next one. Peace.